Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another wonderful show of Simply Walk the Talk. I am your host, JoshuaJHolland, and today we are at my crib. We're at my apartment. This is actually a first for the show, recording at my apartment. Normally, I'm doing all these cool little biohacks in which I show a few things here and there, but this is kind of the first time that I've pulled up the backdrop and I'm on the couch and I'm hanging out and I have an amazing guest with me. For any of you just listening, I would definitely suggest to come and watch the video. For those that are watching the video, you see that I have a lovely guest with me. Her name is Sloane Tilley. Now, Sloane is an elite triathlete. Yes, I said triathlete. She's an elite triathlete, and she's also a scientist who has focused on the research in genetics and epigenetics. It's going to be a lot of fancy words being thrown out. I'm probably going to be stepping over my tongue here a lot, but that's okay because she's here to help me out. She's also, as we speak, pursuing an MBA, and I think just all around, she is the total package. She's a badass, and I wanted her to come here to talk about her situation with GeneSavvy and why it might be important to work with a company like this, and what are we going to learn. So strap on your seatbelts. Let's go on this ride together. And Sloane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for welcoming me into your home as well.
Of course.
As a proper Southerner, I always feel like I'm intruding, so it's so welcoming.
Well, you're not intruding at all, not one bit. Being that you're a Southerner, where are you from?
I'm actually from North Carolina, so go Heels, as always.
North Kakalaki, as they say, right? This is going to be fun. If you are here to, if you're watching the show, I promise you we're going to have a few things that you'll want to maybe come back and write notes with. But before we started recording this episode, we actually went through the entire genetic testing kit that was sent to me. And so we're going to definitely talk all about that. In fact, I have the kit here with my precious DNA inside. But yeah, let's just start with your background and how we got to the point where we were talking on the phone at an airport, I believe. I think I was at the airport when we started talking, and I'm just like, yeah, let's just get on the phone, let's talk about it, because throughout my journey as a biohacker, I've done a lot of genetic testing, and and I'm sure some of the listeners and the viewers have probably done the same thing. So why is it important for me to go through the process of kind of spitting in a funnel, a test tube again?
Well, besides, providing great content, you spit in a tube.
True.
Really, why we went out and started GeneSavvy was because whenever our founder was working in the field of functional health, and whenever I say functional health, it's really a growing field where, healthcare has become, I think in a lot of people's eyes, a lot less about truly healthcare and sort of prevention, and it's become more about symptom management. So we sort of wanted to go down this journey of how can we, not only make people feel better if they're feeling ill, but prevent people from feeling bad in the first place. And whenever he started looking at it and started looking at all the sort of options for genetic testing out there, all of them were testing maybe a few 100,000 SNPs or single nucleotide polymorphism. See, even I get tripped up over the words.
Right.
And whenever I say those fancy words, all I mean is that our DNA is quite simply 4 different letters repeated over and over and over again. A, T, C, and G. So let's say that the reference code says that you should have an A there. If you had a T, that would be called a SNP.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a few 100,000 of these things, and maybe that covers 100 or so genes. But we have 23,000 genes in every single one of our cells. So we felt like a lot was being left on the table as far as what we could look at. And that was where the idea for GeneSavvy really came, was let's test every gene. Let's test every variant in every gene. And then we have the analytics now that we can actually process that data and give people actionable health insights from all of their genes.
Wow. Okay. So as you may have heard and seen, like, we're going to definitely go down some rabbit holes, and we're going to be able to really talk scientifically, but we're going to also try to make this very digestible, no pun intended. But I can't help but notice the fact that you said we. Is this something that you started, or how does that how does that work?
So I was brought onto the team about 5 months ago. We were just commercialized in 2021, but this, I would say, has been a dream of our founders for the past 10 years. He's somebody that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and he really started the company because he worked in a functional health clinic, and he saw the power of genetic testing to change lives. But he said, we're leaving a lot on the table as far as lives that can be changed. So let's go after that data and let's find it and let's make that product available.
Wow. So, I think it's really cool, especially from the mind of a person like me who is very optimistic and also has big vision. That is a huge vision, right? Like, because if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that there's, in each of our individual cells, there's 23,000 genes, and then we've got trillions of cells, right? So that's a lot of markers. That's a lot of like SNPs or whatever, right? So like, I think, when I look at spreadsheets and things like that, people who know me, like my friends who know me, know I hate looking at like spreadsheets. I just can't even imagine 23,000 in one cell, but like times a trillion, like what? So what do you do with this? Like what is it, or what does a person do with this knowledge?
So what we did was that we brought in people far smarter than I am to build a way to actually score every variant. So once again, bear with me as I go down the science rabbit hole, but our DNA codes into RNA. And that's just based on that letter system that we talked about. It's 1-to-1. So if we know there's an A here in our DNA, we know that there will be another letter here in our RNA. Based on the RNA, that then goes into 3-letter codes to code into protein. And proteins are what actually do things in our cells, right? I mean, we hear about, kinases or enzymes that break things down. These are the sort of the little action figures in our cells, zooming around doing things. So if we know the change at the DNA level, we can actually predict the change at the protein level as far as which amino acid is subbed in. So while it all seems a little bit complex, once again, like I said, people much smarter than I am came up with a scoring system based on what we call the Central Dogma. And what we can do from that point is we can actually score each variant by likelihood to disrupt a person's health. And then we collate all that data into a very easy to read and simple format of what are things that you can do based on a huge back end of data to support networks that are likely to be disrupted based on your personal genetic profile.
Wow. So, and again, help me, because like I'm sure some of the questions I'm going to ask may, like the listeners and the viewers may be thinking the same thing. At the same time, there may be some questions that appear to be very obvious and dumb, but I don't think any questions are dumb. So with that, it seems like you would need a lot of substance of a chemical like to get this amount of DNA. But from what you just had me do before we started recording, I just spit into this tube. So you can gather all of that stuff just from spitting in the tube.
Yeah, and once again, there are no dumb questions. If there were, I would have asked a lot of them by now, just over the course of my life. In the middle of this pandemic, everybody now has heard of PCR testing, right? Mm-hmm. So what that stands for is polymerase chain reactions. And what we're doing actually on our side is very similar. You amplify the DNA, so we just make millions of copies of it. But that's what allows us to collect such a tiny sample and very non-invasively from you, but still get access to all of that data.
That's helpful. It's a really good analogy and a very good way of explaining it, because I think PCR testing is something that we all have been going through right now, right? So thank you for clarifying that. And I have heard of, what they do, but I didn't understand it as well based on how you just explained it. So now it's very clear. Okay, so let's say that, like myself, I have done genetic testing before with a few other companies, two other companies. And I felt like I got a decent amount of information from that was very, very helpful. Why would it be important? Like, let's say if I represent a big part of the community that also has done the same, why would it be important to then take the time and the money that it costs to do another testing kit?
Yeah, and that is a great question. And it's something that I feel passionate about for two reasons. And I think the first is explaining sort of really why our technology is different from a lot of the other testing companies out there. And that's because we are doing sequencing versus genotyping. And once again, bear with me here. Imagine if I told you, go and pick up one of these books in your apartment. Okay, now tell me what the 52nd word on the 102nd page is. Just tell me that word.
Just the one word.
Just the one word.
Noodles.
Okay. Well, then obviously I can tell you that book is all about antique pasta makers in Italy and how they were designed. And it's actually probably about like the steelwork behind those pasta makers, right?
Wow. Because it could be totally nothing to do with the actual book.
Yeah, and so that's what genotyping is. It's saying, I'm going to go, once again, going back to those letters, I'm going to go to this one letter among, a gene that a lot of people have heard of is, MTHFR, very important in methylation status.
Yes.
So
I love, by the way, like, again, if you're watching, kudos to you, because I think this is awesome, especially like as a biohacker. So for those that are just listening, I'm holding up this sticker that was also part of this package that Sloane sent to me. And it says, one bad MTHFR. That is amazing. That is amazing.
I've never gotten stopped more walking around a conference center than I did whenever I had stickers like that on me.
That's brilliant. I love it. I love that marketing. Anyway, continue, please.
So just in this one gene, there are over 20,000 of these letters, these base pairs. Most of these panels that you're getting, they'll test anywhere between 2 to 13. But a variant could happen anywhere along that gene.
So wait. So they're testing 2 to 13 of the variants within the genes. Is that what you're saying?
And they make a call about the status of that gene based on those 2 to 13 markers. But where we approach it from is to say that variants could happen anywhere along the gene. And the whole point of genetic testing is that you're unique, that your genetics are unique. And if we don't capture all of that inter-individual variation, we could be leaving a lot on the table.
Yeah, so, okay. So a couple things come to mind because, again, I'm along with the listener and the viewer, I'm trying to also understand this a little bit better. And I've had the great fortune of being able to talk to you beforehand. Also, I've done other testing and things like that. And so I've learned a lot, but this is different because it's sequencing versus just testing, right? Just
Exactly.
regular testing, like what's there on that page, like you said, because you want to know more about what the actual book is about. Maybe you need to have the outline at the beginning so you can kind of infer what the rest of the book is about. I think is kind of what you're saying. But and if I'm jumping ahead too far, please let me know. The other thing, though, I tend to think about, and maybe it's because they're only taking 2 to 13 bits of information from the genes, I also think about these outside influences, because when I used to use my data that I got back from these other companies, it was like, oh, okay, well, I know that my epigenetics can influence whether that gene is expressed or not. So, how would that look in terms of like what you guys are doing at GeneSavvy? Like, does that matter? Or, if we get back something that says it looks like you're doomed, is that kind of our fate and then we have to just live with that? Or can we make some changes? How does that look?
So your genes are not your destiny. I think that's something that everybody, needs to know, but also is a very scary thing whenever you go into any sort of genetic testing. What am I going to find out? And we really believe that knowledge is power because you can make adjustments based on what you find out. So the really interesting interplay between genetics and epigenetics is that your ability to methylate is based on your methylation genes. So while your genes are always being turned on and off, it's also sort of a constant cycle of, are you more predisposed to be able to respond to, say, a methyl supplement and be able to influence some of those things based on your genes? And so
Can you just maybe explain to people listening and watching methylation?
Yeah. So if you think about your DNA, and once again, just think of all these little letters lined up. It could be very cute. Literally all that epigenetics is it means epi on top of your genes. So whenever we talk about methylation, we're talking about methyl groups that actually get added on top of your base pairs. And that can affect how all of these different enzymes and proteins that come in to replicate your DNA and sequence it to turn it into RNA have access to it. So methylation, in the most typical sense of it, is thought to silence genes. That's not always true. But typically it's thought to block access from some RNA, from the proteins that turn it into RNA and go on into protein. So that's whenever, you're talking about genes being silenced.
Interesting. Is there maybe another analogy you could use? Because so far I'm loving your analogies because it's certainly helping me to understand it a little bit differently or maybe better. And my hope is that it's doing the same for the people on the other end of this. But maybe you can provide another example or analogy to better explain that, because silencing a gene makes sense to me, but I don't want to leave anything unanswered for those that are listening.
100%. So let's say that you wanted to get in your car and go for a drive. And your car's parallel parked. but there's this huge bus just parked right on the street alongside of your car. If your car is the gene, that bus would be the methyl group. It's blocking your access to your car and prevents that gene from being expressed or, say, you going for a drive.
There you have it. That's good. She's really good at analogies. I like
He
that.
put me on the spot with that one. That was not rehearsed.
That's really good. Really good. Okay. Yeah. So I got it. So a methyl group. In this biohacking world, I hear a lot of people talking about being a poor methylator for various things, right? Like I know that there's a lot of people who don't process like B vitamins as well. So, what does that look like, or what does that mean? Because, like I think of methylation as metabolism or utilization of said chemical or substance, but like how would you describe that, or what would that mean?
I mean, it's honestly very multifactorial, and I think that's the challenge of it, right? And that's why whenever we build up, methylation is one of our functional networks that, we try to give you a really comprehensive picture, because it's not just metabolism, but it's also, not just, micronutrient utilization either. There are multiple genes that are all interacting with each other. And depending on what variants you have in your genes, that can sort of determine what sort of methylator you are, and what either clinical sort of like diagnostic tools you could use to, regularly explore, am I improving my methylation status? Or sort of what supplements would you best respond to based on your personal profile?
Wow. Yeah, it's just, to me, I can geek out on this all day, but I feel like we should carry on, because it's becoming a little bit more clear, but I can also easily see how there could be way more questions and going down rabbit holes, and that's what you're here for, I think. Because one of the questions I had to you when we first communicated was, okay, some of the problems I've seen in this health and wellness world when it comes to all this testing and getting information back or whatever is like, what do you do with it when you get it back? And I know you addressed that early on in this episode. You addressed the fact that you will try to make that as easily receivable to those that are getting the results back. So if you could maybe explain that. And actually, I'm just gonna close my computer for 1 second.
Yep.
So sorry. Because I keep hearing this thing, and that's because I don't have that plugged in. Okay.
I'm so sorry about your leg.
All good. Okay, we're back. So could you maybe describe what it looks like to get all this stuff back?
Yeah. I guess this is where I can best just speak to my personal experience. Like, obviously, I've done it, and I was very similar to you. I'd done some other genetic tests previously, and I found some useful information. Like, I think that's a really strong advocacy almost for going further, is that if you found this information to be useful in the past, there's probably more information there that could also be useful. But whenever I did my own testing, I do really like to race triathlons. That's sort of my equivalent of his crazy biohacking world. But I was in a pretty bad cycling accident about 5 years ago. And I had some damage to my knee, both like a fracture and some tendon damage as well, and had 2 surgeries, had like been trying to get back to it. And I did my physical therapy. I'm a little bit type A, so I was pretty type A.
You don't say.
Type A triathletes are not common at all.
Not at all.
But I just still felt like I was still having chronic pain. And whenever I got my results back, it was actually really interesting for me, because I had multiple variants in my collagen and cartilage producing genes. And That was something that had never been brought to my attention before. Like, I also just sort of hadn't thought about it at all. Like, as
I wouldn't have either.
like, I mean, you hear college, I hear college and I'm like, can this product like make me look younger, please? Like,
Right.
but I started adding a collagen supplement every single morning in my coffee. And the other thing I found out was just, the report specifically called out that it's best co-absorbed with a little bit of vitamin C. So like, just usually if you have enough bioavailable, but just maybe have like a handful of berries or something with it, just to promote that co-absorption. And like, I'm training for my first full Ironman, and I never thought that would happen based on sort of my health history. And it got me back to doing what I love. So for me, that was just a very concrete example of sort of an aha moment. And then right there was, well, this is something I could go out and try, 2 days from now, thanks Amazon Prime, and see if it works. And I was very, very lucky that it did.
Yeah, I think it's important that you pointed that out, because that's transformative, and it could provide a relatable example for those out there looking at this or listening to this and thinking, okay, but what am I going to do with it? That's a clear example of what you could do with it, because I wouldn't have thought of that either. But at the same time, like, you mentioned that you saw variants. Is it that, like, there's a normal level and then variants pop up almost like a red flag? Is that what a variant is? Or do you need to specifically go in and look at, like, I guess what makes the variant such the thing that you had to go, oh, it's that? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so what our report does is it makes it to where you don't have to look into that level of detail. So it will just call out whether the variant is likely to affect, enzyme or protein activity or not. But if you do want to go into that level of detail, the information's definitely there. It's just sort of a little bit farther down below your actionable recommendations, because we know that that's the main thing that most people are interested in. But what we're doing on the back end is we're looking at some variants, like you said, are red flags. Like, if it made the protein stop being produced or translated very early on. So that would be called like a stop codon, and it means that you would essentially have no protein in your system, and that would be a really bad variant.
Of course.
But then let's say that there's another variant that just makes that protein just, it's at the very end, just makes it a little different. So we could say enzyme activity is likely to be affected, but probably not as much as if either it was earlier on in the gene, or there are different profiles of these amino acids. And the amino acids are the building blocks of our proteins. So amino acids have different profiles. So some are polar, which means that they're highly charged, and some are non-polar, which means they're not very highly charged. So whenever you imagine a string of amino acids and they're trying to fold together to form this protein, we know that charged things, if they're like charged, they repel. If one's positive and one's negative, they attract. So depending on sort of what the charges of those amino acids are and what are subbed for different things where, we can make a prediction of, is that likely to affect somebody's health? And really, whenever I say health, I mean, is it likely to affect that protein's function? And does that protein have a key role in this cellular process?
Okay, so then that's helpful. Thank you for that. Another question that kind of comes up, and if you, just feel free to kind of say, this is crazy, I don't know. But like, what is that measured up against? Like, so, because for me, I'm what I'm hearing, but I don't know if this is correct, but what I'm hearing is that there is a standard But what is that standard for the variant to be active or not active, or red flag or not red flagged, or maybe it can do something, maybe it doesn't? Like, what is it measured up against?
No, that's a great question. So what we're measuring it up against is the reference genome. So
Aha. Okay.
and I think that this is something that is also really interesting as well, because we know that different populations, different ethnicities, people from different countries have a greater, predisposition for different variants, or maybe a variant for them wouldn't raise as many red flags. So that's really, as the reference genome is that of probably a Caucasian male, like most scientific research is. So I think that it's a really interesting area to start to think about how we can bring more diversity, equity, and inclusion into the genetic testing sphere.
I like this part of the conversation. Yeah, because, I'm glad that this came up, because that could be interesting as well, because this is why I think this information is going to constantly change. It's going to constantly evolve, because as more people do this, more things start to pop up and like, oh, actually, right? Because some of the couple of programs that I signed up with before, every once in a while, like once a month or once every other month, I get this random email that's like, oh, you know what? Did you know this? And I'm like, huh? But I did this 10 years ago. And it's like, yeah, but things are changing. That's why. Huh.
And I think it's incredibly, obviously it's incredibly important just to capture more people in the realm of scientific research and get more people involved. But also, I think it's incredibly important from a health perspective. If people have different predispositions and different risks based on their health profile, it's not equitable for, products to offer differing levels of risk management.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I think this was very good in breaking down all of the things, right? Breaking down everything that is to that one could possibly learn from it. And I'm sure there's a lot more. But then what? You do what we did earlier. For those that are watching, yet again, I've got this kit that it's sealed now, but it comes to you like this, and if you're as cool as I am, you might get some cool stickers and some fun stuff, But basically everything is kind of contained in here. You essentially just spit into this tube, connect the other tube, and you shake it up, and then you basically drop it in the mail, and you get back what? What is one to expect?
So what a person could expect to get back is, one, we do always provide all of the raw data. So you'll not like to look at that because it's a really big spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But there are some people that we realize that do love that, and they want to have access to all their data. And we very firmly believe that your data is your data, and you should be able to see where we're getting these insights from. But the more useful, and I'd say more popular thing for a lot of people, is our PDF report. And that contains 9 functional health networks. It's called our Maximized Wellness Report. And those cover methylation, which we've talked about, but also detoxification, oxidative stress, musculoskeletal stability. And we're also constantly generating new reports, and that's sort of, we'll pivot just quickly. Because we've collected all the data in the front end, we can produce more reports a lot more cheaply than other tests can, because we have all the data on the back end. So you're not paying for a new panel every time. We're just rerunning the data.
Got it. So it sounds like it's like a one-time investment that has a huge return on investment year after year after year, hopefully.
Yeah, and that's what I always sort of like to our health isn't this thing that we just check in on and it's just sort of one level. I feel like we're sort of constantly moving through phases of health as we move through different phases in our life. And I think that genetic testing can have a place to play in all of those, whether it's just in disease management. That could really help as far as just getting clarification into what's going on. But you could also say just, as far as like health optimization, whether that's, weight management, sort of what does my macronutrient metabolism profile look like based on my genetics. But then, you can also get sort of into maybe like the tip top of the pyramid and go into like the biohacking sphere. And, what are these basic micronutrients that I could like try to add in to really hone my athletic performance or things like that. So we really see it as it's data that follows you. It's not something where we drop this report in your lap and we say, have fun, we're done with you. We want to develop a relationship because we think that one, new insights are constantly coming out as far as relates to our genetics, but it's also data that you need to interact with throughout your life as you change and as the science gets updated.
Super cool. Yeah, this is very fascinating. I think like I'm excited to see where this all goes for me. And I think if depending on when this episode comes out, maybe we can include some of my results on this episode, so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. I definitely want to learn more because, for instance, like one of the things I went through before was how does cannabis influence my genetic makeup based on my DNA? And I learned so much from that because there was like this, the way that the company did their system was like, it would show me which terpenes were best suited for me if I want to improve my sleep, which terpenes are best for me if I want to improve my like reaction to pain. And like for me, I was like a kid in a candy store because I'm like, what? Like I've never seen this. And people would talk to me and be like, oh, here man, try this, or you should try to get this. And I'm like, let me look at the terpene profile, please. And they're like, what, dude? And I'm like, well, actually I did this testing thing and based on my DNA. And they're like, dude, just try it. And I'm like, okay, all right, fair enough. But I bring all that up to say, like, you can either go as deep as we would go, or as I would go, or certainly as you would go. Or you can keep it very surface level, it sounds like. And I think if I'm hearing right, you guys have a way of communicating with someone to help talk you through all these things. Is that true?
Yeah, so we primarily partner with either health coaches or with functional health providers. So it may be that either you could find a health coach that is, we like to say gene savvy. So
hey.
see what I did there? Or find an integrative practitioner who can go through the results with you. We're, of course, always happy to help as well. So our kit, you can just buy it directly from us. And most likely it will be either Chris or I talking about it with you. But we really feel like, at the end of the day, we're doing more the production and the kit side of it. And we really want you to have a personal relationship with a health practitioner because, I'm not a health practitioner. And I feel like as important as genetics are in your overall health, it's also about that relationship that you have. And so that's really where we like to engage with more on the local level and really try to build a community of people that know how to go through these results with clients. Beautiful.
Well said. Yeah, I think this is very cool. And so far, even what you've talked to me about, I'm already like, okay, I can't wait to get these results back. A question that comes to mind is, typically, how long does it take to get, like once you drop it off, how long does it take to kind of get results back?
Right now, it's about 6 weeks. That is actively coming down as we're ramping up volume. So if everybody just goes to our website and purchases a kit, you're going to get them back faster. So Help Josh out here. Come
There we
on.
go. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's a really good point. I think the point of doing this is to bring more awareness. Awareness that, my book is all about the awareness shift and just being more aware of the things, the tools that we have out there, the resources we have out there. People like Sloane, even myself, I don't know what she knows in terms of all this, but I'm happy to share my experience, and I think that's important. And so far, the experience has been amazing because it's been super easy. I just spit into a tube, twist it, and send it back in. How easy is that, right? But the information that is going to be gained from this, I think, is going to be very, very fascinating. And so in that 6 weeks time, what is one, or, approximately 6 weeks, right? Maybe it's faster by the time that this comes out. But in that time period, what do? We just kind of hang out and wait, or there's some, because I guess there's not much to do based on the genetics if you don't have the information back, right?
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, we try to put out educational content as well. So we do have some blog posts that are up on our website of of differences between some of what we talked about here today. Like, what is this wild world of genetic testing? What's the difference? What does genotyping mean? What does sequencing mean? So we do try to, really be information based and try to, give people a sense of, we're trying to provide you with information, but that information only makes sense if you know sort of the background context. So we're really actively working on providing more of that context. But also, check out our website, download a sample report just sort of to see what you're in store for. I think that's always a great way. And, we'll continue to post bad puns on social media as far as
It's good. I love it.
one bad MTHFR.
Yes. I think you guys are crushing it in terms of the marketing, and the whole process has been fun. In fact, getting a chance to meet you, connect with you, also to talk about this, it's just been so fun. So I want to do anything I can to provide more exposure to what you're doing. And of course, once we wrap up, I want to make sure we give listeners an opportunity to know how to best support and to get their own kit. But before we do that, as we're starting to wrap up, and of course, if there's anything else you want to talk about or bring up, let me know. But I always ask 2 questions on my show, and I don't even know if I prepared you for this.
You didn't.
I definitely didn't. Okay. It's fun, I think, and it's very easy. It's super chill. But when I have guests on the show, I like to ask 2 questions. And the first question is, what is your top 2 pet peeves? And while you're kind of thinking about that, the reason why I like to ask these questions is because typically it's above and beyond, separate from the product we're talking about, the service we're talking about, whatever. And it's also kind of a way for anybody who knows you, who's listening to this, to go, oh, that's why she acts like this when I do blah, right? So, I'll leave it there. But what would be something you would consider your top 2 pet peeves?
Oh, so I'm a big sports girl. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, undergrad and first grad school. Diehard Tar Heel. And I'm actually now 8 miles down the road at the school that we do not name, the other shade of blue, for my MBA, which is hurting my soul a little bit.
Ooh.
But it has always been a pet peeve of mine that people who start to root for their grad school sports teams whenever you did not go to undergrad there, it does not count.
Oh, yes. That's a thing. That is a thing.
You asked me. It is very specific. But
oh, wow.
It does not count.
I love that. And that's like shots. Pop, 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 pop. It's like shots to anybody out there doing that. Yeah. So if you didn't go to undergrad, then don't root for them. You heard me? We get that a lot. I'm from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge rivalry in Oklahoma between OU and OSU, which is University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State University. And in fact, we have some of the most diehard fans. We have one of the biggest rivalries called the Bedlam series. And it's like, if there's a person who is just so diehard one or the other, usually it's followed up with, so did you go to school there? It's like, well, no, but it's like, well, then why are you? Yeah, I love that one.
And I would say the second is just like inefficiency, which I know is more broad, but I feel like there's so much out there to do in the world. Not to say that like rest and relaxation are great, but just like if you're there to work and like accomplish a goal, like you need to be out there and like getting after your goal.
I like that one. In fact, it makes me think about the inefficient setup we had today before we started recording. It was super inefficient.
That was not inefficient. We were getting to know each other. I was not thinking of that.
Oh man, if only I had a video of trying to get these microphones to work and these cameras to people. Listen, there's a lot that goes into making these episodes, okay? So
and he is amazing at it. Y'all do not know what he puts in to produce the amazing content that he does for you.
I did not pay her to say that, I promise. But yes, there is a lot that goes into it. So I'm always very appreciative for anybody that shares these episodes, especially if you find something valuable from it. And I've learned a lot today from talking with Sloane. So I imagine that you as a listener and as a video follower, a viewer, I'm imagining you're probably learning a lot as well. And I definitely know that if you get one of your own kits, you're gonna learn even more, okay? So let's keep that in mind. Thank you for the 2 pet peeves. Those are really fun. Okay, last question that I usually ask every guest, and it's the more, I think, beautiful side of it. It's something I practice every single day, but what is something you are most grateful for? And that could be from any part of your life or career. It doesn't have to be anything about your company. It can be just about anything. But what comes to mind is something you're most grateful for?
This is hard because I feel like I'm very lucky and a lot of things come to mind.
That's totally fine. It's good. I would be worried if nothing came to mind.
That's right.
I would be a little worried.
No, but it is. It's hard to pick one.
You can pick a few. You can lump some things together then. Why not? We got time.
I mean, I think for me, it's really like getting up every day and getting to do things that I love. And I would encompass my job in that, but also, you know, there was a time whenever I thought that I wasn't going to be able to race again, and I'm able to train. But even more so, I feel like I've reached a point in my career and found a company that work doesn't feel like work. I'm able to be in the health and fitness space and able to, you know, sort of combine my work and my play. And that feels really, really lucky.
Wow.
And I'm just very, very grateful for it. I'm excited to see where it takes me.
It's very beautiful. Like I feel that emanating off of you, from you. It's powerful. And the reason why I love gratitude is or at least asking guests about their gratitude is because it helps remind me of all the various things that I'm grateful for, personally. And I also love these opportunities because I imagine when those various people watch this, they get a chance to really feel that. And sometimes we just don't have it in us to say how grateful we are to someone or to something. But when you come on my show, I'm going to bring it out. You know what I mean? I'm going to bring it out.
I know. You turn the heartstrings.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so powerful. Okay, so whenever we wrap up, I always like to offer an opportunity for people to find out more about you, where they can go to sign up for their kit, any kind of like specials you might be running or discount codes or, you know, whatever. Like, blurt it out. What's up with GeneSavvy?
Yeah, so best place to find information about us is definitely just our website. It's just GeneSavvy.com.
That's spelled with 2 V's, by the way, everyone. GeneSavvy.com. Okay, GeneSavvy.com, yes?
Also, we love more followers on social, Instagram, Twitter, handles just at GeneSavvy. But I would say also, just website,
social media. So I guess you guys are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. TikTok?
Not TikTok, not yet. I need to get it started.
Not yet. We've got some content for TikTok. You know we have some content for TikTok.
The plate is a little full right now, but I do need to get on TikTok.
Yeah. All good.
But yeah, I would say those are really the best ways to engage with us. And remember what I was going to say now. Whenever we post this episode, we're going to get a special discount code, especially for viewers and listeners.
Okay. You heard that, right? So we're gonna
I've gone on camera now.
Yes,
so.
We're on camera. If it doesn't get edited out, you guys are gonna get a discount when you hear this. I love doing this when I work with companies and services that offer something that's really beneficial for the supporters of the show, because it's just a way to give back. And and I always like to be as transparent as possible when it comes to these things, because at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of time and money that goes into the various things that I'm doing, like she was pointing out earlier. And some of the best ways to support this show is to, support any of the people that I bring onto the show. Go flood their DMs, go and follow and just stalk the hell out of them, I guess, right? But also, like, if this is something that you think you can benefit from, then sign up. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. We can get in touch. I'm sure she could also help out. But if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to hit me up. And let's see if we can't help change the state of health and wellness amongst everyone that we would consider loved ones in our tribe, in our circle. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Most importantly, to the listeners and followers, thank you for your time. And until next time, this is Josh signing off with Simply Walk the Talk. Peace.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Simply walk the talk.